Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is not just news, not just another crisis. It is a warning, a countdown, a moment when an entire nation realizes that it is standing on the edge of something unimaginable. For millions of people in Iran, especially in Tehran, the capital city once filled with life, noise, and energy, the reality is now painfully simple. The water is almost gone. Not reducing, not declining, almost gone. A situation so extreme, so irreversible, that the government itself has quietly begun preparing for something they never expected to face: the evacuation of millions of people from their own capital. For years, Iran's water crisis was whispered about, debated among experts, and dismissed by officials who insisted that things were under control. But now, the truth is forcing its way into the open. Tehran's water lines, the arteries that once brought life into the city, are drying, collapsing, and in some regions, disappearing completely. What was once considered a distant possibility is now being described by insiders as zero day. The moment when taps run dry for good and survival becomes the only priority. When we talk about zero day, we're not talking about fear mongering. We're talking about science, climate reality, and decades of mismanagement finally converging. Across Iran, the effects are everywhere. The rivers that once flowed with power are now thin lines of dust. The great reservoirs that held the nation's lifeline have become cracked bowls of mud. Wells are collapsing. Groundwater is disappearing faster than it can be replenished. Farmers who once produced food for entire regions are abandoning their fields, their homes, their livelihoods, because the earth no longer gives anything back. Tehran is the beating heart of Iran, home to more than 10 million people within the city and its surrounding districts. But even this giant of a metropolis cannot survive without water. And now, with each passing day, new reports emerge of neighborhoods going without water for hours, then entire days, and in some cases, multiple days in a row. People wait in long lines carrying plastic containers, hoping for a turn at the emergency water trucks. Tempers are rising, fear is spreading, families are panicking because they know that this is just the beginning of something much worse. Inside the government, behind locked doors and guarded offices, officials understand the gravity of what's coming. Some have begun drafting quiet emergency plans. Some have begun mapping evacuation routes. Some have begun identifying which districts would be moved first if the worst happens. Nobody is saying it publicly, but the writing is on the wall. Tehran may soon become one of the world's largest modern cities forced to evacuate because of water scarcity, a terrifying reality that no one living in the capital ever imagined possible. The causes of this crisis stretch back decades. Iran has always been a dry land, but never like this. Climate change has pushed temperatures higher than ever before. Rainfall has dropped dramatically. Winters have become shorter and drier. Summers now bring heat waves that scorch the soil until nothing can grow. But climate is only part of the story. Mismanagement, corruption, and decades of careless water exploitation have accelerated the collapse. Rivers were diverted without long-term planning. Farmers were encouraged to grow water, intensive crops in deserts. Illegal wells were dug everywhere, draining aquifers that took thousands of years to form. What should have been managed with caution was abused with greed. Today, Iran is facing the consequences of those decisions. The crisis is no longer hidden in rural provinces or isolated villages. It has reached Tehran, the city that was supposed to be untouchable, the city that was never supposed to run out of water. But now, even the giant dams that supply Tehran are nearing dead storage levels. Some are already below the threshold where water can be pumped. Engineers warn that within months, not years, the system could fail entirely if emergency measures are not taken, and the people know it. They feel it in their daily lives. They see it in the empty taps. They smell it in the dusty air. They witness it in the dried fountains, dead parks, and lifeless outskirts of the city. For years, people worried about rising food prices, inflation, and political pressure. But now, the fear is about something much more fundamental. How do you live without water? The psychological weight on families is enormous. Parents do not know how they will protect their children if the crisis reaches full collapse. Hospitals, schools, and markets are all dependent on running water. Without it, modern life stops instantly. Water isn't just something you drink. It's what keeps electricity plants running, what keeps sewage systems functioning, what allows cooking, cleaning, hygiene, sanitation, everything. When water stops, everything stops. In neighborhoods like Western Tehran, families have already begun storing water in buckets, bottles, anything they can find. Social media is filled with videos of people capturing even a few liters from temporary supply trucks. Some warn that the government isn't revealing the full scale of the shortage. Others believe that the announcement of Zero Day has already been discussed internally, but delayed to prevent public panic. Experts around the world have compared Tehran's situation to other major cities that faced similar threats: Cape Town in South Africa, Sao Paulo in Brazil, Chennai in India. But the difference is population size, geography, and political infrastructure. Iran does not have the financial or political flexibility to import massive amounts of water or rapidly construct emergency desalination plants. Its economic sanctions, internal political turmoil, and fragile economy make large-scale action incredibly difficult, which brings us to the most painful question. What happens if 10 million people need to leave the city because of water scarcity? Evacuation on this scale is unprecedented in modern history. It would require transportation, temporary housing, medical support, security, and massive amounts of resources that Iran simply does not have. Moving even a few 100,000 people would strain the system. Moving 10 million would push it to collapse. And that's exactly why so many experts are calling this the most dangerous moment Iran has faced in decades, not because of war, not because of sanctions, but because of water. Iran is not alone in this. Across the Middle East, nations are facing rising heat, collapsing rivers, and shrinking water supplies. But Iran's situation is unique because of how quickly the crisis has escalated. In just one decade, groundwater levels have dropped more than the previous century combined. In many regions, aquifers have fallen so low that they may never recover. Once groundwater disappears completely, it's gone for thousands of years. No technology in the world can replace that. Inside Tehran, some have begun leaving voluntarily, hoping to settle in northern provinces where water is still available. But even those regions are now experiencing shortages. The fear is spreading like wildfire. What if the entire country runs out? What if climate change pushes Iran into a permanent water emergency? If nothing changes, this isn't just a crisis, it's a collapse. And yet, there is still one question nobody wants to ask, but everyone is thinking: who is responsible? For decades, leaders have dismissed warnings from scientists and environmental experts who pleaded for reforms. Instead of modernization, Iran relied on outdated water infrastructure, aging pipelines, and unregulated water extraction. The nation consumed more water than it produced year after year until the system finally began to break. Today, Tehran's cracked soil, dry fountains, and empty pipes stand as evidence of leadership failures that can no longer be ignored. People are angry, frustrated, afraid, and they want answers. They want someone to take responsibility. They want solutions, not slogans. They want action, not silence. As the crisis deepens, the world is watching closely. Some believe international aid will eventually become necessary. Others think the government will have no choice but to admit the severity of the problem and request global assistance. But for now, nothing is certain. The only certainty is the fear that grows each day as more water sources fail. What comes next will define Iran's future. Will the government act in time? Will the people unite to demand change? Will there be new policies for conservation, new technologies, new strategies for survival? Or will Iran become a tragic example of what happens when a nation ignores the warnings of nature until it's too late? Today, Tehran stands at the edge. Zero day is approaching. Millions are waiting, and the countdown has already begun. The world must understand that this is not just Iran's problem. It is a glimpse into the future that many nations may face if climate change continues unchecked. Iran is simply the first to fall into the danger zone. But for the people living this nightmare, this isn't a lesson for the world. It's their lives, their families, their homes, and they deserve honesty, leadership, and a real plan before the taps run out for good. If you want more deep analysis, more reality-based investigations, more truth that others don't show, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Stay alert, stay aware, and stay prepared. Thank you for watching.